There are moments in life that don't just change your story, they tear it apart entirely. For Marcus Hale, it was a cold October evening, driving home from his late shift at a hardware store, thinking only about sleep and dinner. The city lights flickered through a drizzle, and he had no idea that less than 3 miles away, a young man was dying in an alley. Or that someone he had never met, was about to make him the scapegoat for a crime he never saw. By sunrise, Marcus would be handcuffed, confused, and staring at a future he hadn't turned. And as he sat there in that patrol car, staring at the rain-soaked street, he asked himself a question you might ask too: how does the universe decide who pays for someone else's sins? Before we get deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, we'd love to hear, and if you're new here, click subscribe so you never miss our upcoming stories. Marcus had always believed that living quietly, working hard, and staying out of trouble would protect him. His mother used to say, "The world may not be fair, son, but your choices can shield you." Yet that night, choices didn't matter. Flashing lights blocked the road, and a detective waved him forward, paused, then pointed at a dent in his bumper, a dent that had nothing to do with the alley, the crime, or the night. "Pull over," the officer said. In that instant, Marcus felt the first twist of a nightmare he hadn't signed up for. He was cuffed, questioned, and accused, not for what he did, but because he looked like someone else. And that's when the cruel reality hit: the justice system sometimes isn't about truth, it's about creating certainty, even if it's wrong. If this was you, innocent and helpless, how would you feel? Hours passed in a small, buzzing interrogation room. Marcus watched as detectives laid out photos, timelines, and statements that didn't fit together, insisting he had been near the crime scene. Every denial he uttered was treated as defiance, every pause as guilt. They brought out blurry security footage of a car similar to his, and suddenly, the narrative of his life had been rewritten by others. His heart raced. The room felt smaller with each passing minute. This could be anyone's nightmare, he thought. Innocence didn't matter here, appearance and assumption did. And as he stared at the wall, he wondered, what kind of system punishes first and asks questions later? By the time Marcus met his public defender, Claire, the weight of suspicion had already begun to settle into his bones. She listened, patient but aware of the uphill battle. "They're pushing a narrative, hard," she said. And she was right. A single, vague witness, a dented bumper, a hoodie found nearby, it was enough for the system to start closing its case. Marcus realized, in that moment, that innocence was not a shield. It was just a hope, a fragile, almost invisible hope, that could be shattered with a glance, a lie, or a convenient assumption. That night, Marcus sat on a cold jail bench, thinking of the life he had before. Friends, routines, freedom, all stolen in a single, twisted moment of mistaken identity. He could hear footsteps, the clatter of trays, the low murmurs of men with stories as heavy as his own. And he asked himself, how do you survive a system that doesn't see you? 11 years of life could be taken in the blink of an accusation, and the world would shrug and move on. But Marcus refused to accept defeat. He whispered to himself, I will fight. I will survive. I will reclaim my story. If you've watched this far, comment I'm still here. And remember, fighting injustice is never optional. Morning came, heavy and quiet, like the world itself was holding its breath. Marcus hadn't slept. The fluorescent hum of the holding cell, the distant echoes of men pacing, and the constant, suffocating uncertainty made rest impossible. Then Claire entered with a folder, her expression serious but tinged with hope. Inside were surveillance images from a convenience store 2 blocks away from the alley. A man wearing a dark hoodie, the same one described by witnesses, moved toward the scene at the exact time Marcus was safely at work. His pulse quickened. This was more than evidence, it was a lifeline, a glimmer in months of darkness. Finally, a piece of the puzzle wasn't twisted, didn't bend to the prosecution's narrative. Marcus felt the cold knot in his chest loosen slightly. If you believe truth matters more than convenience, hit subscribe and stand against those who twist reality for their own gain. In court, Claire presented the footage with caution. Marcus watched, heart pounding. as the image displayed the man near the crime scene while he remained miles away. The room shifted. Gasps and whispers filled the gallery. The prosecution tried to dismiss it, claiming the footage was inconclusive. But Claire had cross-checked timestamps, angles, and witness accounts, ensuring there was no room for doubt. For the first time, Marcus felt momentum shift. The scales of justice, so long tipped against him, were nudged slightly back toward balance. Yet he knew, even as hope flickered, that one misstep could undo everything. Then came the revelation that shook the case further. Thomas Keegan, the witness whose word nearly destroyed Marcus, had a motive. Claire uncovered testimony from neighbors, statements showing prior grudges, and inconsistencies that could not be ignored. Every lie he told, every exaggeration, added weight to Marcus's innocence. The detective's errors, the mishandled evidence, the convenient assumptions, it was a mountain of mistakes stacked against one man. Yet, for the first time, Marcus saw a path forward. He could feel the possibility of freedom in the air. But the fight was far from over. The system didn't bend easily, and the prosecution would resist. If you're watching and believe the innocent should not be silenced, comment "Everyone deserves respect. Don't side with lies." Claire called Marcus's mother to the courthouse. Seeing her face, tear-streaked but resolute, reminded him why he fought. She whispered, "They cannot take you from us. You are innocent." Simple words, yet they carried the strength of every year lost, every fear endured. Meanwhile, the prosecution challenged the surveillance, attempting to discredit timestamps and footage authenticity. But Claire had evidence verified by the store's IT team, indisputable proof that Marcus could not have been near the alley. The courtroom shifted, the jurors leaned in, paying attention. 11 years of fear and hopelessness began to lift. Marcus understood that this fight wasn't just about him, it was about truth standing against convenience. If you've watched this far, comment "I'm still here." Show the world that injustice cannot go unnoticed. The tipping point arrived unexpectedly. A co-worker of Keegan came forward, revealing that Keegan harbored a personal grudge against Marcus. He said he wanted Marcus blamed for something, the co-worker admitted. The courtroom went silent. Claire's eyes widened. Marcus's chest tightened. Finally, the lie sustaining the prosecution's narrative had a visible crack. His pulse raced. 11 years of fear, frustration, and waiting now collided with a fragile hope. The prosecution tried to minimize the significance, but jurors were watching. They could see the truth begin to peek through the shadows. Marcus sat quietly as the day ended, processing what had unfolded. For the first time in months, he felt that cautious, fragile sense of safety. Yet he knew the battle was not over. The prosecution could appeal, witnesses could retract, and courts could make mistakes again. Still, Marcus realized something vital: truth has a persistence of its own, and when it's undeniable, it can pierce even the thickest walls of doubt. If you're still here, comment "Justice for Marcus." Show the world that you are not siding with injustice. Weeks passed, and Marcus's anxiety deepened. The courtroom was a strange, suffocating place where facts seemed to matter less than appearances. Thomas Keegan, the witness whose words nearly sent Marcus to decades behind bars, had a reputation for exaggeration. Yet the prosecution clung to his story, presenting it as truth. Claire meticulously combed through depositions, highlighting contradictions, conflicting timelines, and even Keegan's admissions of poor memory. Marcus felt a surge of disbelief. One person's lies, fueled by personal grudges and vanity, had nearly destroyed his life. The system didn't seem to care about logic or fairness, just the convenience of closure. And as Marcus sat there, he asked a question that might echo in your own mind: how many lives have been ruined by a single unreliable witness? During a pre-trial hearing, Claire presented irrefutable evidence of Marcus's innocence. Security footage, timelines, witness statements, all pointing to Marcus being miles away from the crime. The prosecution waved it off, insisting the jury would see what they wanted to see. Marcus watched, pulse racing, as the room filled with tension. The weight of years trapped behind bars pressed down on him, yet hope flickered. The scales of justice, so long tipped toward assumption, were nudged, ever so slightly, toward fairness. Marcus understood something crucial: the system could bend, but only if someone refused to be silenced. If you believe truth matters more than convenience, hit subscribe. Trolls won't. As trial day approached, Marcus and Claire strategized relentlessly. Every statement, every timeline, every potential cross-examination was rehearsed. Marcus memorized details, anticipating every attempt to twist the truth. The courtroom became more than a physical space, it was a battleground for reality itself. On the first day of testimony, he felt a strange mix of fear, anger, and determination. Jurors listened, leaning forward, absorbing his story. The lies told by Keegan and supported by sloppy police work were unraveling before their eyes. Marcus realized that truth, consistent and undeniable, could withstand scrutiny. If you believe the innocent should never be silenced, comment everyone deserves respect. Don't let dishonesty dictate lives. Keegan returned to the stand. Claire's cross-examination was precise, exposing every inconsistency, every motive, every hesitation. The man who had nearly destroyed Marcus's life now faltered under scrutiny. Marcus's heart pounded with anticipation and fear. The courtroom felt alive with tension, every listener aware that they were witnessing more than a trial, they were witnessing a life being fought for. Marcus's past 11 years, every lonely night in a cell, every moment of despair, all led to this confrontation. Truth had found a voice, and it was powerful. If you can't stand people like Keegan manipulating the innocent, comment everyone deserves respect. Stand against deceit. Claire's persistence began to shift the jury. The once confident prosecution faced the reality that Keegan's testimony was no longer unquestionable. Additional evidence, carefully verified and presented, created cracks too wide to ignore. Marcus watched silently, breathing shallowly, as justice inched closer. He thought of every day lost, every relationship strained, every opportunity stolen, and a quiet determination filled him. I will not be defined by what was taken from me. I will survive, and I will reclaim my life. If you refuse to side with corruption and lies, comment everyone deserves respect. Stand for fairness. Marcus understood the fragility of truth in a flawed system. Lies, assumptions, and human error had brought him here, yet persistence, careful planning, and the refusal to surrender had allowed the first real cracks to appear. The story was far from over. Marcus had almost given up hope. 11 years of fear, uncertainty, and false accusations weighed on him like a storm he couldn't outrun. Then Claire called him into a quiet courthouse office, holding a folder that might change everything. Inside were surveillance images from a convenience store 2 blocks from the alley, a man wearing a dark hoodie, the same description used to frame Marcus, moving toward the scene while Marcus was safely miles away at work. For the first time in months, relief surged through him, sharp and disbelieving. The impossible seemed possible. One piece of concrete evidence could undo years of fear. Marcus realized how fragile justice could be, how easily lives were stolen by lies. And yet, even here, hope flickered. The next day, Claire presented the footage in court. Marcus watched as the jury absorbed the images, the man moving near the alley while Marcus's alibi held. Gasps filled the room. The prosecution tried to dismiss it, claiming it was inconclusive. Claire countered with verified timestamps and corroborating statements. Marcus could feel the momentum shift ever so slightly. Justice, long dormant, was stirring. But he knew the fight wasn't over. The courtroom was full of people invested in certainty over truth. Even the tiniest doubt could tip the scales back. Marcus thought of those still trapped by errors, mistakes, or lies. Then came the revelation about Keegan. Neighbors, past statements, and inconsistencies revealed a motive. Keegan had a personal grudge against Marcus. Suddenly, the story that had nearly destroyed Marcus's life was collapsing. Each lie, every exaggeration, every gap in testimony now stood exposed. Marcus's pulse raced. The realization hit: one man's desire for vengeance almost stole over a decade of his life. The weight of lost time pressed down, but hope began to take root. Marcus understood the fragility of truth, Yet he also saw its power when wielded carefully. The system could fail, but persistence, clarity, and evidence could pierce its walls. If you believe innocent people should never suffer, comment everyone deserves respect. Don't side with dishonesty. Then came Thomas Keegan's cross-examination. Claire systematically exposed every contradiction, every inconsistency, and every hint of motive. Keegan's confidence faltered, his voice shook, and the prosecution's once solid case began to crumble. Marcus's heart raced. 11 years of fear, isolation, and hopelessness felt like they could finally be undone. The jury watched silently, absorbing the unraveling lies. Marcus understood that truth had its own rhythm, slow, relentless, and undeniable when wielded with care. As the days of testimony progressed, the jury's attention shifted. The once comfortable prosecution faced mounting evidence against their narrative. Claire presented the verified surveillance footage, corroborating statements, and the co-worker's testimony exposing Keegan's motive. Marcus's pulse quickened with each revelation. He remembered every lost opportunity, every day behind bars, and felt a surge of cautious hope. The courtroom, once a symbol of fear, became a stage where truth could finally speak. Marcus understood that freedom was not just the absence of chains, it was the acknowledgement of truth, of reality restored. Claire called Marcus's mother to the courthouse. Her presence was grounding, a reminder of what was at stake. She whispered, "They cannot take you from us. You are innocent." Simple words, yet they carried the strength of every lonely night and every lost opportunity. Meanwhile, the prosecution tried to discredit the footage, but Claire presented verification from the store's IT team. Every claim of tampering, every objection, collapsed under scrutiny. Marcus watched jurors lean in, paying attention, noticing the cracks in the prosecution's story. 11 years of anxiety and hopelessness were beginning to lift. Marcus realized that the fight wasn't only about him, it was about the truth asserting itself in a world that preferred certainty over justice. If you've watched this far, comment "I'm still here." Show the world you reject injustice. The tipping point arrived when a former co-worker of Keegan testified, admitting that Keegan had intended to see Marcus blamed. He wanted Marcus to take the fall, the co-worker said. The courtroom fell silent. Claire's eyes widened. Marcus's chest tightened. 11 years of fear and isolation now collided with a fragile, shining hope. The prosecution attempted to minimize the revelation, but jurors saw the truth beginning to emerge. Marcus understood how close he had come to losing everything. The lies and manipulation of a single person almost defined his entire life. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Marcus's hands trembled as he listened to the foreperson's voice, "Not guilty." Relief, disbelief, and joy surged through him. 11 years of fear, false accusations, and stolen moments had culminated in vindication. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at Claire, at his mother, and at the courtroom filled with spectators. This was more than freedom, it was proof that perseverance, truth, and the refusal to surrender could overcome the gravest of injustices. Marcus realized that while the system could fail, human determination could correct even the deepest wrongs. Marcus stepped outside the courthouse for the first time in over a decade. The air was crisp, ordinary, and miraculous. Reporters shouted questions, strangers offered congratulations, yet all he could focus on was the life he had lost and the one he could begin to reclaim. 11 years had been stolen by lies, manipulation, and systemic errors, but Marcus survived. He understood the fragility of justice, the cost of human error, and the value of persistence. His story was now a message: the innocent must fight, truth must persist, and silence should never be mistaken for submission. If you're still here, comment "I'm still here." Let the world know that injustice will not go unchallenged. Freedom is a strange thing. For Marcus, stepping outside the courthouse for the first time in over a decade was surreal. The air smelled different, ordinary sounds carried weight, and the world felt both familiar and foreign. He hugged his mother, tears mingling with laughter, finally feeling the absence of fear that had defined his life for 11 years. Yet even in joy, the scars remained. Marcus knew the system could fail again for someone else, someone innocent, and he felt the weight of that responsibility. Survival wasn't just about escaping the cell, it was about reclaiming purpose, speaking for those silenced, and ensuring the truth had a chance to matter. If you believe the innocent should never suffer, comment everyone deserves respect. Hit subscribe if you refuse to side with injustice or deception. Marcus began rebuilding slowly. Jobs, friendships, and routines had to be reclaimed carefully, as if learning life all over again. Every step reminded him of what had been stolen, birthdays missed, graduations gone, years of quiet life lost to accusation and fear. Yet he refused to dwell solely on anger or regret. Instead, he transformed pain into action. He met with organizations aiding the wrongfully convicted, sharing his story, raising awareness, and advocating for systemic reform. Each conversation, each lecture, each testimony became a lifeline for others trapped in injustice. The fight had shifted from survival to impact. Even quiet moments were charged with reflection. Marcus sat in his small apartment, sunlight spilling across the floor, thinking of the life he had reclaimed. Memories of the cell, the interrogation room, the false witness, and every fearful night were vivid, but no longer paralyzing. He smiled at the small victories, a call with his mother, laughter with friends, volunteering to help those still trapped in broken systems. Each act reminded him that resilience and integrity could survive even the harshest injustice. Marcus understood that freedom was not just legal, it was emotional, psychological, and moral. If you can't stand people like Keegan manipulating the innocent, comment everyone deserves respect. Stand against corruption and lies. Marcus also worked publicly, attending panels, meetings with policymakers, and interviews, urging reform for better evidence handling and stronger protections for the innocent. Every word he spoke carried weight, informed by 11 years of living a nightmare that could have been avoided. He knew that one voice, persistent and truthful, could create ripples, preventing others from enduring what he had. The courtroom had freed him, but society still required vigilance. Marcus had become more than a survivor, he had become a messenger, an advocate for accountability. Marcus sat quietly, processing the day's revelations. For the first time in months, he felt that fragile, fleeting sense of safety. Yet he knew the battle was far from over. The prosecution could appeal, witnesses could recant, and courts could still make mistakes. But Marcus realized that truth, once undeniable, has a power all its own. He had glimpsed freedom, and hope now guided him. Marcus felt the weight of 11 years pressing down on him as the trial resumed. Each step into the courtroom was a step into the past he had never deserved. The prosecution, desperate to maintain their narrative, tried to introduce new witnesses and twist evidence. But Claire was ready. Every timeline, every alibi, every statement had been rehearsed, analyzed, and verified. Marcus understood that this was more than a trial, it was a war between truth and convenience. Jurors leaned forward, listening intently, absorbing every word. For Marcus, each sentence he spoke was a reclaiming of life, a defiance against the injustice that had haunted him for over a decade. The first day of testimony was tense. Marcus took the stand, recounting his location, his work hours, and every detail that proved he couldn't have committed the crime. The jury watched, captivated by his honesty and consistency. The prosecution attempted to discredit him, but every lie they tried to use fell apart under scrutiny. Marcus realized something profound: persistence and truth, combined with preparation, could stand against years of falsehood. Each juror could now see what Claire had known all along: the evidence was on his side.
Marcus reflected often on what freedom truly meant. Sitting quietly, he thought about the relationships he could rebuild, the dreams he could pursue, and the life he had postponed. The scars of the past remained, they would never disappear, but they had transformed into lessons, into a resolve to prevent injustice whenever possible. He realized that the system could fail anyone, yet the human spirit, truth, and persistence had the power to correct even the gravest wrongs. His journey was proof that injustice could be overcome, and that those who survived could create meaning beyond survival. As this series concludes, Marcus walks forward into a life reclaimed from shadows. He understands the fragility of justice, the danger of assumptions, and the profound responsibility of survival. Freedom is not simply absence of chains, it is the choice to speak, act, and ensure that innocence is recognized and protected. Marcus's story reminds us all, the innocent may suffer, the system may fail, but truth and persistence can prevail. He survived the unthinkable, emerged awake, vigilant, and determined to change the system for others. If you're still here, comment "I'm still here." Share this story, subscribe, and remind the world that injustice anywhere affects everyone.